Okay. Well, welcome everybody to our guest speaker this week. We're on week 13, and this is a week right before Thanksgiving. And I'll let Melanie introduce herself. I do want to say, Melanie, that our guest speakers have kind of been a good cross section of the professionals that I know that are kind of in the business of using these digital tools, in the work that they do. So the class has gotten a good sampling of everyone from state librarian to folks like we had Crystal Yamasaki. Well, actually Crystal had Chantel on, and then we had Alan Tang, we had Nathan Hokama. They're all like PR marketing folks. I had Liberty from HPR. I also had Brian Dote, who's a programmer, so a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. And then I had Brandon Makaava from Nation of Hawaii, who I think is a good representative of somebody that is using the tools to help get the word out about something that if it wasn't for things like social media, I'm not sure how many news outlets would necessarily cover Nation of Hawaii stuff. So it's a good way for him to get the word out. And so that's kind of the cross section. And Melanie, I've known for quite a while. In fact, she went to the same university as I did, but probably 20 years after I graduated. I don't know. That was a bit of a gap there. And then we both used to work at HMSA, and she is the guest speaker that I wanted to have kind of represent the television world and what the kind of like Liberty was talking about the radio world, right? And how even in radio, they're really trying to embrace some of the content creation for some of this, social media platforms. And I think it's probably similar in the television business. So with that, I will hand it over to Melanie, and then she has a little presentation, and then I would encourage all of you to feel free to ask questions. And this is your opportunity to find out what's it like to work in this particular field in the sort of television world, which is not it's a fast changing and very kind of dynamic environment. So Melanie, take it away.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Bert. Appreciate you all having me today. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. 1 second, so I can show you my presentation. Okay. Can you all see my slides?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about what it's like to be a digital news producer for a TV station. So a little bit about myself. So I am currently the digital executive producer at Hawaii News Now. I come from a journalism background, so I got my undergrad degree from the University of Washington, where Bert also went. I got my degree in communications, my master's degree in mass communication, where they really emphasize journalism, and have a lot of communications experience from working at HMSA to Hawaii News Now, where I kind of rose in the ranks, started off as an intern and then became an associate producer, then jumped into the Sunrise Morning Show where I was a digital producer, and then worked my way up the digital team where I'm currently a digital executive producer. So as a digital EP, I help lead a team of 7 journalists. All of their roles kind of vary. We have more digital content producers who do a lot of the writing and social media. And then we have a guy that does more of the video side of things. So he goes out and shoots video for us and then comes back and edits the video together. And then we have our digital director who kind of leads the overall team. So I kind of work hand in hand with that person. So what we do as a digital team is we create news content for our website, our mobile app, social media, and various other digital platforms. So I have a question for all of you. Do any of you watch Hawaii News Now?
I do.
Okay, awesome, Bert. Thank you. I'm not sure if anyone else said anything,
I
but
saw a hand go up. I saw a
oh,
hand go up.
awesome.
And
And I
then,
also,
another thing
yeah.
you could do is have them just, if they don't wanna say anything, they can just respond in chat.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yes, I'm looking at the chat right now. Awesome. We have a few yeses. Great. And I also want to know, do you all follow the news and where do you get your news primarily from?
That's a good question. And I guess, well, like I saw Instagram, you know, what do you all define news as, right? I mean, there's news from the news media, which you would think maybe is the classical news media, the stations like, NBC, ABC, CBS. But then there's also news that gets distributed via Instagram and TikTok. So that's an interesting question, Melanie. Where do people actually consume their news?
Yeah, because traditionally, a lot of people would get their news from the newspaper or watching broadcast news. But, we're seeing lately more of a trend towards digital news consumerism. So getting your news on news agencies' websites or social media. And nowadays, people are even consuming their news from TikTok and YouTube, and I'm seeing a lot of Instagram here, so that's really interesting. Um, so the reason why I asked this is because we are primarily a TV station. Hawaii News Now is NBC, CBS, and NBC and CBS affiliate, and we're also K5. So KGMB, KHNL, K5. But we're really growing in the digital space. So we primarily, most people watch us on TV, but a lot more people are kind of gravitating towards the digital area of what we do. And so, hold on, minimize this. Okay. So our audience primarily comes from our website. So if you go to hawaiinewsnow.com and you see some of our latest breaking news or other news of the day, that's where a lot of our audience comes from. And then another avenue is social media. So I would say Facebook has always been from about 2010 when we first became Hawaii News Now, when all the stations merged. That's when Facebook was really starting to take off. And in fact, it's still continuing to grow, even though I'm not sure how many of you use Facebook. I'm hearing a lot of the younger generation is not as active on Facebook as some of the older generations. But that is still one of our main ways that we get the news out, primarily because we send out the links to web articles through the Facebook posts so that they have a direct way to get to the stories because they can click on the post or the link itself. But we are really growing on Instagram. So we have 538,000 followers from when I last checked. And so that's an area where we're really growing and we're kind of experimenting more with that. The unfortunate part about Instagram is that we can't include links in the post. So a lot of times we're kind of pointing the consumers to our main bio page where they can actually access links. So that's kind of the trickier part about Instagram. There's no like direct way to get to our posts, but they'll see like the top headlines and maybe a brief description on what the story is about. And then X is another tool that we use to get our articles out there. And unfortunately, X isn't growing as much as it used to back in the day when it was Twitter. That was like one of the main ways that people would get to our articles. But I think the trend is kind of going away from X a little bit, and people aren't really using it as much as a news tool. So we're not really focusing all our resources on X as much, but that is still a way that we get our news out. And then YouTube is another platform that we're really expanding on. We've grown a lot on YouTube, mostly because in the early days when we first started on YouTube, there wasn't a direct way to get our videos on unless you actually like edited the video and then uploaded it natively. But our corporate company, Gray Media, figured out a way to automatically transport the videos that we clip for our website directly onto YouTube. So it's pretty instantaneous. Once we clip the video for our website, it automatically feeds into our YouTube channel. So that's another way we've been getting some of our stories out. And that's really taken off in the past year or so, mostly because of that. And a lot of people are consuming their news on YouTube these days. And then Threads and TikTok are two other avenues that we use, but those aren't our main focuses either. Threads was kind of one of those things that really blew up when it first began about a year ago. But now we're kind of seeing a trend like away from Threads. So we're not really focusing all of our resources on that. And then TikTok is another one that's kind of it's a very interesting platform because we've tried a lot of different ways to get our news out. We would try like the traditional way of just posting a regular news story. Then we tried some kind of more fun viral methods, but it's kind of one of those that's like we're not really sure how it works in the news space. So we don't really focus heavily on TikTok either. It's mostly, I would say, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube are like our three main avenues of social media. And then our third way we get the news out is through our mobile app. So I think I saw some of you said that you use our mobile app. So when we write our stories for the website or when we clip video for our website, it also goes to our mobile app, which is really convenient because we don't have to take any extra steps to create the content for that. It's all basically what you see on the website is what you see on the mobile app. And then another way we get the news out is through our breaking news push alerts. So I'm just curious how many of you have our push alerts? Anyone? Bert, our loyal HNN user. So push alerts are a really great way to get out the breaking news that happens. So anytime there's like a crime or like a shooting or anything like that, or even national news like the Matt Gaetz situation, we pushed it out on our mobile app and users would see the breaking news alert and then they can click on it and then it would take them to an article, or sometimes we'll send the user to our live stream so that they can see the news when a show is actually playing on our live stream. And then fourth is our over the top. I don't know why it's called over the top OTT, but that's basically if you see the graphic on the left side, that's an example of what it would look like if you saw us on Apple TV, for example. So anytime we clip video for our website, it also feeds to our Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku apps. So that's another way we're getting the news out to consumers. Okay, next
Melanie,
slide.
so a couple things.
Yes.
The over the top, when in the broadband world, you have infrastructure, right? So you got fiber optic cable, and it goes from point A to point B, and you get your kind of like your content over that, and then you have the platforms, like the Googles and the Facebooks and the Amazons, and they use the broadband network, and they are considered over the top. So that's why they call them over the top. So they're like platforms that use the infrastructure. The infrastructure is like, I guess, the the bottom, and then these guys are over the top of that.
Oh, okay. That is good to
And,
know.
and then the other question I had for you was, given the fact that, and I talked a little bit about this last on our last class about, sort of like the Twitter and Elon Musk and kind of like the whole, I don't know, sort of like the, I don't how do you say it? It's like it's like a it's like a could be a cesspool of stuff, that starts to percolate on Twitter. And what happened was a lot of people went over to Blue Sky, and Blue Sky was started by one of the former one of the founders of Twitter. I'm just curious, did you think about Blue Sky as a possible alternative to Twitter?
No, we actually have never discussed Blue Sky, but that is actually a good thing we should look into. I don't think it's ever come up in conversation. I've heard of it personally, but station wide and also gray media wide, I don't think they've really explored Blue Sky, but that is something that we should definitely look at.
Yeah, you should. I mean, just give it a thought, because it does feel like the early days of Twitter, and it's a more kind of a friendlier group of people that, and it's kind of funny because I don't have a lot of followers. They're now starting to follow, and it's all the old Twitter followers from from before.
The
But
OGs.
if exactly, if Hawaii News Now were to embrace Blue Sky, I think you'd probably be one of the first.
Yeah, that's true. I don't really know of too many news organizations that have used Blue Sky, unless you've heard of any.
Yeah, on Blue Sky, I mean, you have the New York Times and Bloomberg, and some of the major uh, you know news outlets. So they're there. They're there. I
Oh,
don't know. I
okay.
don't see like KHON or
Right.
KITV. Yeah.
The local stations.
Oh,
Okay.
PBS Hawaii is another one.
Oh, okay. I should
Oh,
look at what they're doing.
PBS National. I'm sorry, PBS National.
Okay. Good to know. I will check that out. Okay. Okay, so my next slide. So some of the key components that are needed to become a digital producer is having the writing background. So that's probably, I would say, if you were to ever apply for a digital producer position at Hawaii News Now, I would say one of the main things that you should have is writing skills or a writing background, because we're consistently writing on a daily basis for various platforms. So here are some examples of where we write. So we write for our digital platforms. So that includes writing web scripts. So anything that you see on our website, any article, either that's a national story, but all the local stories that you see are all written by us. And so you kind of need to have that like solid news writing experience. And so knowledge of AP style is a must for that. So that I would say so if you wanted to look into a job here, definitely try to like really improve your writing skills. And then secondly, we always write for social media. So that's like a totally different type of audience from our web users, because writing for web or web scripts is a lot more formal than what you would see on social media. Because when you look at an Instagram post, a lot of times you'll notice the difference between that and our web scripts. The social media posts are a lot more conversational, and we try to, as much as possible, like try to latch on to some of the trends that are happening. So that's a different style of writing. And then push alerts in itself are a totally different skill, because we have to figure out ways to alert people in I think we have a limit of 130 characters. So we have to try to send the message out in 130 characters, which can be really tricky to include some of your main key points that you want to get across in just that amount of characters. So that can be tricky in itself, but you also want to make it catchy so that people actually do open our push alerts and read the article. We always strive to send out captivating push alerts that people want to click on. And a lot of the way that they're written is more like a headline style. So I'm not sure how much AP style experience y'all have, but writing headlines is you use active voice, and you kind of write like you kind of keep the main points in the front, and then the less important points towards the end of the push. So that's kind of a skill in itself. And then we're also writing long form stories on our website. So back when I was a senior digital producer a couple years ago, one of my main tasks for that position was doing enterprise stories. So for that, I was basically a reporter. So I would go out in the field and come up with a story idea, and then reach out to sources, interview those sources, gather data, do all my research, and then write a long form story. So that's a skill in itself, just because you kind of have to know the AP style, but you also kind of like are have to write in a way that like really expands on a topic. So there's that. And then also writing for on air, because even though we're digital producers, we're also helping the TV station as a whole. So we also have to know how to write for the on air broadcasts. But I will say personally, I think writing for on air is a little easier, because it's a lot more casual, conversational. They use a lot of puns. I don't know if you notice. Whereas writing for digital platforms is a lot more formal, I would say. So there's just different ways that different styles that we have to use when we write. But that is definitely something that we need as digital producers.
So Melanie, I'll read the alert that I just got, and it's definitely a headline kind of like grabber. It says, oh, let me refresh my my phone here. It says, outright lie.
Yeah.
It says UA's president shuts down conspiracy theories over athletics director firing. It's like, oh man, I gotta watch that.
Yeah. So I know who this was who wrote this. So yeah, she tried to come up with like a catchy sentence that wanted, like you want to make people click on it. It's something interesting. It has a quote in there. So it's just a different way of thinking, I think. Like how you have to kind of think like, how would I, as a viewer or a consumer, want to view a story? So that's kind of what she did there, trying to make it catchy.
Yeah. It's all about grabbing your attention in the split second that somebody might be looking at their phone.
Yes, exactly. And especially because like in today's day and age, like I feel like our attention span is a lot shorter. So you have to be, brief and concise, and you have to get the information out there quickly. So that's another challenge that we kind of deal with. Okay, next slide. And please stop me if anyone else has any questions or if I'm going too fast. Okay. So the second component that is needed for a digital producer is the content creation aspect of things. So that involves creating content for our social media platforms. So like I mentioned earlier, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube are our top social media platforms that we focus on. So we really are looking more at Instagram for content creation. So if you can see the screenshot on the right, so that was a look at our feed from a couple days ago. So we created some of those posts using Canva. So, get a screenshot of whatever the story is, and then a headline using a certain template that our graphic designer built on Canva. So those are the posts, the graphic posts. And then we also create Instagram Reels, so the videos. So I think that Obama Presidential Center video, that's a reel. So the person who did that got some of the B-roll. I think this was a national source. So he got B-roll from CBS and then kind of put it all together. He used Edius, but he also, which is it's an editor tool that we use, but he also used Canva to put the video together. Canva is another really important tool for us that we've been using for creating content. So that's kind of what happened there. Yeah, so posts and reels. And then we also create long form documentaries. So that same person that made that Instagram reel, he's very involved in creating documentaries. So one of the great things about working for Hawaii News Now, digital especially, is that we have the ability to pursue a lot of passion projects. So a lot of people on our team have their own individual topics that they're very interested in. We have a girl who's like really interested in climate change. And then we have another team member who's took a great interest in mental health issues. So she actually won an Emmy Award for her documentary on mental health. So that was exciting. And then the guy who created that Obama post, he's really into, he was really fascinated about the history of the ukulele. So he had this idea of wanting to tell the story of the history of the ukulele, and reached out to different sources, gathered his information, did a lot of research, and produced a 30-minute documentary that went both on air and on our website and social media, particularly YouTube. So that's one of the great things about the H&N digital team, is that we can pursue these passion projects like documentaries. And then thirdly, as far as content creation, we're able to take some of the interviews that the reporters will do for their packages and put it online in an extended form, because on air, the reporters are limited to 2 to 3 minute packages. Sometimes they go a little longer, like about 5 minutes, but the point is they're limited in what they can put out there on the air. So when they do have a really great interview that they want to share with the audience, they'll send the audience over to our website where viewers can see the 30-minute raw interview that this person did. So as digital producers, we're responsible for editing those interviews and then uploading them to our website. So the same goes for web extras. Anytime there's something additional that a reporter or producer might want to put on air to put online, that's what we digital producers are responsible for doing. And then finally, content creation also includes creating podcasts. So that's a really new avenue that we're looking at, is creating podcasts. So some of the news stories that go on air. So we put our 4 p.m. part of our 4 p.m. newscast will turn into a podcast. And we use this tool called Omni Studio to upload and do a little bit of light editing. And the people who subscribe to our podcast can listen to the news stories, but also maybe long form interviews. The person I told you about who was very interested in climate change, she actually had her own podcast called Repairing Earth. So she actually edited, she would do her own interviews, edit that, put all the sound effects, and then upload it on Omni. And people could listen to the long form interviews as a podcast. So those are some of the ways that we create content for our website beyond just, writing web scripts and doing all of that. This is how we kind of get to exercise our creative muscles a little more.
So Melanie, the podcast. So if somebody wanted to subscribe to the podcast, where would they go? They would find it on the Hawaii News Now website, and they could subscribe there.
Yeah, so you can either go to our website and there's a link at the top that says podcasts, or you can basically get the podcast wherever you subscribe to podcasts. So iTunes and Spotify, we're also on there. So basically anywhere you listen to podcasts.
And then the other question is, Instagram, and you put down reels.
Mhm.
How do you differentiate between, what goes up as a reel versus perhaps what goes into Instagram as a story? I know stories kind of only have a limited lifetime, right?
Yeah, so that can be kind of subjective. For me personally, if I see so okay, let me think of it this way. If a reporter does a really interesting story that I personally think will do well on social media, then I'll actually clip the entire story, the package that ran online, and then put it in our template. We have like a specific template where you can put like horizontal videos and make it vertical. So that's one way I do it. And then other times when I create kind of more like a fun reel that has a lot of B-roll, it's usually because I see a story that has a lot of visual elements. So if it's like trying to think of an example, like weather, for example, people love to see weather video, like thunderstorms or flooding. So things like that. If there's like a lot of action going on in a video, then that's kind of my cue that I take to put together a reel for that. But it is kind of subjective. Like people might think that that might not be as fun as a video, and maybe it's better as a story or a post. But it's kind of like using your own discretion. Okay. So I noticed that this class also kind of talks about how you use email as a digital tool. So for us, I just kind of wanted to go over how email is used in a newsroom setting. So the first way I wanted to talk about was we have an email newsletter that people can sign up for. So to sign up, you would just go on our website and there's a section, if you kind of scroll down in the middle of our page, where you can put in your email address, and then you can sign up for our H&N Daily Digest or breaking news alerts. And that's a special tool that Gray uses, Gray, our corporate company. It's a special tool that they use to, it's interesting because it's like, I think it's AI technology, but it kind of tracks what stories you're looking at on our website. And then based on that, it kind of knows what stories you want to see, and it'll put like the main story on that newsletter. And then here are some other stories you might be interested in. So it's like an AI tool that's used to kind of put together this newsletter, like a customized newsletter for you. So that's one way email is used. And then we use email as a main source for news gathering. So a lot of stories that we run on the news do come from viewer tips. So we're always promoting our email address, which is news@hawaiinewsnow.com. And people in the public, in the community, can send us tips on what's going on in their community. So that's one way that we're using email. And then we'll also get press releases from different PR firms or other companies, or maybe the state will send us information through a press release. So we use some of that and create news stories from that. And then email is also used for exchanging news notes amongst newsroom staff. So if there's a story that like a viewer tip that comes in, we'll kind of talk amongst ourselves as a newsroom. There's like a special email address that the newsroom has. It's a news notes for Hawaii News Now. And we'll kind of discuss some of the topics that might be potential news stories. Or if there's like a breaking news situation, we'll share information through our email, our news notes email. And then we also use email to reach out to sources for potential news stories, whether that's a long form enterprise story that you want to pursue, or a podcast topic, or even breaking news or daily news story. Email is a very important tool for us to reach out to the public and other sources.
You know, in the back office sort of discussion around potential stories, do you use tools like Microsoft Teams or something like Slack?
Oh yeah, so that was actually a good transition to my next slide,
Oh, okay.
which is all the tech that we use on a daily basis. So yes, Slack is one of the main tools that we use. So in the past, we actually would send news notes through email, like I mentioned. We still do, but not as much since we got Slack. So we use Slack. And then we used to use EMPS, which is it's a software that producers and reporters use for on-air news stories. So we used to actually use that. There was a function in that software where you could send messages to each other, but it wasn't as effective as Slack is, because Slack has the ability to notify people or alert you when you do have a new message coming in. And it's really, really useful for us when we want to communicate to people in the field. So if there's a reporter going out on a story, we can easily talk to them on Slack because they'll have it on their phone. So we're at work writing a message to them. They can see the message in the field on Slack. So that's one of the main tools that we use to communicate as a newsroom. Microsoft Teams, so that's how I kind of put it as Microsoft 365. I think it goes in there, but we kind of use Microsoft Teams. Like we do some Teams meetings on that, and that's our main way of communicating with corporate, actually. But as a newsroom, we don't generally use Teams quite as much. It's definitely Slack. So that's a very, very important tool that we use. I know a lot of other newsrooms, especially within the Gray system, they use Microsoft Teams more, but Slack was something that we adopted in, I think, 2017 or 2016. And we just love Slack. So we haven't dropped it. And hopefully we don't ever have to drop it in the near future, because it's such a great tool. So that's how we communicate to each other. And then Arc, the first thing I listed there, is kind of like WordPress. So that's our composer tool that we use to write our web scripts and post the stories. We also use Arc to clip video that you see on our website. And that was built by the team, the engineers at the Washington Post. And then Gray sort of adopted that and implemented it amongst all the different Gray stations, including here at Hawaii News Now. So Arc is the main tool that we use for web stories. And then Edius, I kind of touched on earlier, is our editing tool that we use. The editors for the packages that you see on our news product primarily use Edius. We don't really use Final Cut Pro much. Edius is the main editor, linear editor tool that we use. And then digital producers will also use a little bit of Edius. We're not as well versed as the editors here, but we do kind of have like a basic foundation for Edius. So that's one tool we use. And then I also mentioned Canva, which is used to create different templates for primarily Instagram. And then we use it here and there for web stories when we need to edit a graphic that we put on our homepage. Sometimes we use Canva. And then I touched on Slack. EMPS was the tool I mentioned where the producers will write the on-air script. So that's everything that the anchors see on the teleprompter is written on EMPS. So it kind of transmits that to the teleprompter. And that's what the anchors see to read the stories on air. And then Buffer is our main social media scheduler that we use. So that allows us to, for example, draft a Facebook post and then schedule it for a certain time. And then other people can be scheduling a different post at a different time. And then you can kind of move the posts around and then make it go out at different times. That is a very helpful tool that we've found to be crucial to our operations on a day-to-day basis. Buffer, we use it also for Instagram. Yeah, mostly Instagram and Facebook. I'm trying to think if there's any other. Yeah, I think it's also connected to Threads, but we post natively on Threads. And then Microsoft 365 is kind of the basics. So Microsoft Word and Outlook and all of that. The typical programs that you might use on a daily basis, we also use. And then Adobe Premiere is another tool that we use for editing. That's not everybody in the newsroom knows how to use Premiere, but for the digital team, we've found that really helpful, especially because it has this really cool transcription feature. So I use it for myself as a way to transcribe sound bites and quotes and whatever anchors and reporters are saying in their packages. And sometimes I can make captions for those if I want to post a captioned video on our Instagram. So Premiere is very helpful. And then Photoshop, if we want to edit a graphic. We use Canva a little more, but Photoshop is another way we can edit graphics. And that's kind of it for now. Yeah, that's a little bit of what I do as a digital executive producer and what our team does for Hawaii News Now. Does anyone have any questions?
I'll wait for somebody to ask a question, and if I have a couple questions,
Okay.
but I'll let the students chime in.
I have a question.
Sure.
My name is Case, and I got some experience as a photographer in news and managing social media accounts. And one thing I always see from H&N is Drew Davis, the weather guy. I love his stuff on there,
Nice.
and his videos. And so when he does like weather coverage, like the first alert reels and stuff on Instagram, is he using like Edius or Premiere? And like one of the things that I run into when making like reels and stuff is kind of just like the pipeline from getting it from my computer on Premiere or Edius to my phone or somewhere where I can post it to that Instagram account. So like what would you say is like the best way to go about like getting it from your like a better editing software than your phone on your computer to your phone?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, to address the Drew Davis question, so he's very talented. He does all of his Instagram reels on his own. And I I'm pretty sure he uses Adobe Premiere for most of those. So if you see, so yeah, he'll use Premiere to do the captions and then some of the graphics too. But I think he also has like his own weather system where he creates his own graphics through that system. So he'll do that and then he'll put it in our Canva template and then put it all together from there. And then he'll just upload his own to his own personal account and then we'll collaborate with him from there. But as far as an editing tool that's easy to use on the phone, I would say Canva. Canva's a good way to edit video. There's an app that you can use. I personally, and I think most of the other team members will use editing tools on their computer just because it's like easier to see everything and everything's like laid out in on a big screen. But I do know some of our team members will use things like CapCut too. If we wanted to do like a viral TikTok video, they'll go ahead and use CapCut. But I don't think Edius has a way to use it on the phone as an app. So I would say mostly Canva and then CapCut are kind of like the two, or you can edit through Instagram itself. But yeah, not too
Thank
sure
you.
about like the Premiere
Yeah,
and editing on your phone.
thank you. Yeah, sorry to ask like a sort of more like technical question, but I was just wondering.
Oh, no worries. That was a great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Melanie?
Hello. My name is
Hey,
Melanie.
Malia.
I was wondering, do you guys offer any internships through UH?
Yes, we do. Yes, pretty much every semester we have a new intern, and most of them are from UH. So what you can do is, I can give you, so our assignment editor kind of handles the internships. So I think reaching out to her, or you can actually reach out to me and I can pass your message along. But yeah, we would just put you in touch with our assignment editor, and then she would probably reach out to you, go over your resume or your courses, and then kind of go from there. But yes, we do offer internships, and we love when our interns come in because it's a win-win for both of us. We're able to help give a new cool experience to the students, but also we get some help in exchange too. So I would definitely go that route and reach out to me or our assignment editor, Brenda. And I can maybe, Bert, should I send you my or do you want to send the group my email address or?
You can just put it in the chat.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
And
be reaching out.
Yeah. Please feel free.
Melanie, does Hawaii News now? I mean, what's the capacity for interns? Is it pretty much one per semester, or is there multiple interns per semester?
We usually have about 2 per semester. And another way you can apply for an internship, if you want to get paid for the internship too, rather than just credit, is applying for the Society of Professional Journalists Hawaii chapter internship. So that's another way that a lot of UH students will go about getting the internship with us. I think there's also a gray focus. I think it's called a gray media focus internship. And I believe, don't quote me on it, but I believe you get paid through that too. So that's a new program that some of the students have been looking at too.
So who drew that smiley face on the screen?
I think it was part of, I used Canva to create this. I think it just popped up automatically. It was a
You
template.
mean that little smiley face that just got drawn?
Yeah, it wasn't me, unless somebody else drew it.
It's probably one of these rascal students. So another clarification I wanted you to make is, did you say, Melanie, that you folks write all the teleprompter stuff, or do the anchors actually write their own teleprompter?
It
Script?
depends. Yeah, so the producers write the main news stories, and the anchors will assist them and sometimes write the teases. So a tease is, it comes before the commercial break. It's like, coming up after the break, we have this story about blah blah blah. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what the anchors usually write. But they work really closely together, the anchors and the producers, to write these stories. And then, of course, the reporters, when they create packages, they write everything themselves. And then sometimes, of course, like the managers will go over it with them for peer review.
So like when Howard Dykes goes up, he's pretty much wrote all of his own
Yes.
teleprompter stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Howard's
Yeah.
amazing because he gets in so early in the morning. He writes everything, like he finds all these different interesting business news stories, and he'll write everything, do all the research before his 3 a.m. shift, and then have it ready to go for the 4:30 broadcast. And then he goes home and then he does more research, and then gathers all the information about what's going on in that day. And then he'll
Mm-hmm.
also sometimes appear on the 4 p.m. show giving news stories. So he's amazing. I don't know how he does it. I don't think he sleeps.
And then Grace, they're behind the desk, so it's kind of hard for them to actually steal himself away to write any kind of stuff with a teleprompter, right?
Yeah, it's a little trickier for the sunrise anchors just because they're kind of bombarded with a lot of stuff first thing in the morning. Like they all get in around 3 a.m. and from there they have to start writing and stacking the show. But the anchors for the morning show, so Grace and Steve, they do a lot of tease writing. And then if you watch Sunrise, Steve Uehara has a sports segment, so he's writing all the sports headlines. And then sometimes when they're about to do interviews, if they know about the topic, then they'll like write a little intro to the interview. So they do a lot of writing. It's a little harder in the morning just because there's like so much happening all at once. They don't have the day. Like the evening anchors kind of have like a whole day ahead of them to prepare the
Mm-hmm.
scripts,
Mm-hmm.
but the morning,
Right.
yeah, the morning show people have it really tough just because it's like so early in the morning and there's so much happening all at once.
Yeah. No, I give them credit because they've both Steve and Grace have hung in there through all the
Yes.
crazy, these
Yes.
crazy years.
Yeah, COVID, Maui wildfires. Yeah, and they've been there
Yeah.
from day one, when Sunrise first launched about 15 years ago, I believe. Yeah, they were there from the start.
I haven't seen Grace's new puppy on camera yet.
Oh,
I'm
she's
sure
so
she's had it.
cute. Yes, yeah. I think she brought her out a few times. But if you guys want to check out Grace's new puppy, Luca, just head to the hnn.sunrise Instagram page. And there's a little video. They did a contest a couple of weeks ago where you could vote for her name, your favorite. So she had a bunch of options and you could vote for your favorite name. So they picked Luca, which I think is the scientific term for panda because she's black and white.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess people
I
like
guess
that
Grace
name.
has the responsibility of having the kind of like the mascot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Grace had a dog named Sunny. who was the Sunrise mascot from the day she started. And Sunny just passed away in July. So it's been a couple months. And then Grace recently bought a new puppy. So that's been exciting for her.
Yeah. And Sunny, how old was Sunny?
Oh, she was the same age as Sunrise. So I think she was like 15 or 16, I want to say.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember. I remember.
Yeah, she was adorable.
I know. It's so sad when these puppies they kind of grow up and then they get to the age ripe old age of 15, 16, 17. Ours
Yeah.
was named Mochi and she passed away. She was 18.
Oh, wow. Oh, I remember Mochi.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions for Melanie? Good chance to find out what it's like to work at a TV station. Okay, well, thanks, Melanie. Um, you know, next week is a short week. We have a lecture on Tuesday, but Thanksgiving is on Thursday, so we'll take a bye on Thanksgiving, and then we'll follow that up in December with another guest lecturer. But in the meantime, Melanie, thanks for joining us in our class here. It was very informative, and I always like to have guest speakers because obviously I get to find out more about what my friends do.
That's true. This is
Okay,
probably
so
the most I've shared with you on what I do.
yeah, we kind of, I mean, I see you at the station, and I kind of get feel for what you do and things like that. But it's always good to have somebody like that, come in and actually do a presentation based on some slides that they put together. So that way, they're really kind of standing behind, the work they do. And oftentimes you don't get to talk about that kind of stuff when you're just kind of, passing people in the hallway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us for this class. We'll see you all next Tuesday. I think the chapter is on something called the Proteus effect, which I think is interesting. But in the meantime, I guess between now and then, you guys all have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Melanie.
Thank
Bye. Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Yes, and feel free to reach out via